The UFC heads back to Rio for their annual UFC Brazil tour. Sometimes they go to Rio, sometimes they go to other cities, but they're back in Rio without Jose Aldo, the king of Rio, but they brought Charles Oliveira with them. Charles Oliveira remains one of the biggest stars in this space. I was at UFC 317 when Charles Oliveira fought Ilia Topuria, and I have never heard a fighter get a louder cheer than Charles Oliveira. Every time his name came up in the press conference, every time his name came up at the weigh-ins, people went, he is very beloved. And you know what? He had a pretty favorable matchup when it was Charles Oliveira versus Rafael Fiziev, two strikers that could get after it. Rafael Fiziev is hurt. Mateusz Gamrot steps up. And now Charles Oliveira, in my opinion, has a much tougher fight and a very different matchup. The UFC Rio main event fundamentally changed, but the question becomes, is it better or is it worse? My name is Angelo. This is Josh Thompson. Josh, you think this is a better or worse main event for Rio?
I think it's a better. No, wait, for the fans or for Charles Oliveira?
I guess both. I think it's the same answer for both.
No, it's not. The Fiziev fight was a better fight for the fans because, simply put, like Charles Oliveira, sure, he'll wrestle a little bit, but Fiziev's not the easiest guy to take down. The Gamrot fight could potentially lead to Charles Oliveira just being held down for the full fight and it being a boring fight. I don't think he'll be able to do that. I'm simply saying it could end up being that way. Gamrot's goal is to get the takedown, avoid the submissions. It will not be to stand a whole lot, maybe a little bit to enter into the takedowns, but it will not be to stand and trade and bang it out with Charles Oliveira. So for the fans, this is not a better fight. For Charles Oliveira, to me, I believe it is a better fight. I believe that you know what Gamrot wants to do. You know he's going to be forced into shooting and takedowns. You know he's going to, if I put him on his back foot, he will panic a little bit and he will shoot. And that leads him right into guillotines. It leads him right into front headlocks, into darces, anacondas. It leads him into me taking his back. All of these things, if he shoots a bad shot, I can capitalize on. Not only that, Charles Oliveira is the better striker. Now, the chin does get me a little bit because he could throw a haymaker off of the takedown and land it, and Charles could go to sleep. What concerns me the most about this fight is because the fight is in Rio, that Charles Oliveira decided to come back so quick after his knockout to Ilia Topuria. And the reason is it wasn't even so much that he came back so quick and now he's fighting. You know that he went back to the gym and started training within weeks. You should have taken the time off. You should have taken the time off, and you know he didn't do it. And that's what scares me a little bit about this fight.
It's an interesting fight. I do agree that I think in all likelihood, Gamrot's just going to take him down and hold him down. The upside for
5 rounds. You think he can do that for 5 rounds?
I do.
I mean, they were both.
When have we seen Gamrot like just completely gas out? Dude, Gamrot versus Arman Tsarukyan was 5 rounds. That was great.
It was a great fight. It was.
Yeah. The interesting part here, though, is so Charles, you're worried about his chin. Understandable. He's been kind of a chinny guy his whole career. And even if he was never put out, he got dropped constantly. Just would always get dropped. And he did it with Justin. He did it with Dustin. He came back and won those fights. He did it in the first Chandler fight, I believe. But he was always dropped. He has the most amount of submission wins in the history of the UFC, not even just this division. So there's a couple of themes here, right? It could be, well, what if Gamrot lands big and clean? I don't see that happening. He's literally never done that. I don't think this fight's going to be any different. Well, what if Gamrot decides to wrestle? Well, on one hand, he could end up just holding Charles down the same way Arman Tsarukyan did. On the other hand, it could just be, Charles finds a submission. That's what he does on the ground. I tend to think that Gamrot's just going to hold him down. But there's a much more likely outcome of Charles potentially finishing Gamrot on the feet. If I run through Gamrot's fight history here, he is chinnier than Charles Oliveira is. He was dropped by Garam. He was dropped by Arman Tsarukyan. He was dropped by Beneil Dariush.
Where are you getting these stats?
UFCstats.com.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was, and these are official.
I thought you said UFC's website was trash.
Yeah, for the upcoming fights. The stats, data is data. Data is data. And these are official statistics. And knockdowns is a true knockdown, not like a little wobbled on his feet. So he was knocked down by Garam, knocked down by Arman Tsarukyan, knocked down by Beneil Dariush, knocked down by Jalen Turner, knocked down by Rafael Dos Anjos.
Those are all really good strikers.
And what's Charles?
No, he's a fantastic striker, and he's got
Yeah.
power. If you listen to guys that have fought him before, I think it was Gaethje. Was it Gaethje or was it Dustin? One of them came out publicly and said that Charles Oliveira hits the hardest.
Because he's just so technical. He's just
Yeah,
like perfect technically.
yeah,
And he's massive. If he could defend any of the takedowns, it could get interesting because we saw Dan Hooker beat Gamrot,
mhm,
and Charles Oliveira is better than Dan Hooker at everything Dan Hooker does.
yep.
Right, just literally. Maybe he's not as durable as Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker's got that Dustin Poirier durability. Maybe he's not as durable as Dan Hooker, but he's a better striker, a better wrestler, a better grappler. And I would have maybe dogged his wrestling a little bit, but he out wrestled the hell out of Michael Chandler.
Yeah.
So Charles Oliveira, I think the chin is the biggest concern. Obviously, getting taken down and held down is a concern, but that was the fight. You remember the Arman Sarukian fight? He
Mhm.
was taken down, held down, but he had Arman like clinging on to life early. I think it was a triangle.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm looking at this fight, and I like Gamrot. I just don't see anywhere he can win this fight. I don't think he can hold him down for 5 rounds.
Oh, you're that sure that Charles wins?
Yeah, I believe
Oh wow.
Charles is gonna win this, and I think I agree with you. I think either he knocks him out or he submits him. I think that Gamrot's gonna leave his neck in the wrong spot, and as he has to wrestle more and he has to try to hold Charles down more and all of those things, I think that Charles is gonna be able to get the finish, whether it's submission wise, whether it's a knockout, whatever it is. Charles is just so relaxed out there. For 5 rounds, he can fight hard. He's durable. Like, I know his chin's a little sus now, but to be honest, like Gamrot hasn't fought someone of this caliber. He's fought top guys. He's fought some good guys, but Charles is just a different level. And he's fought the who's who, the cream of the crop. Cream of the crop. I put him up there. Cream of the,
I
I
said cream of the crock. I'd be getting called fat for crock pot,
put,
Betty Crocker.
there you go. But I put Charles up there with the resumes of like a Max Holloway and a Dustin Poirier and those guys that have just some of the two of the best resumes in the game ever to ever do it. And so Gamrot, I just don't know. This is going to be one of those fights. You're in Rio. You're taking it on short notice. You're literally fighting one of the best to ever do it with the most submissions and has really big punching power. You're fighting an uphill battle. It's going to be a very tough fight. You can get it done. You can, but you're going to have to be on point, ready to go from beginning to end this whole fight. Charles is the guy that walks right out to the center of the ring or the cage and just walks you down, lifts the high knee so you can't calf kick him, and he just puts pressure and makes you fight off your back foot. Can Gamrot, weather that storm or weather that pressure for 5 rounds without shooting a shitty shot, without putting himself in bad positions? Can he do it? I don't think he can.
Yeah, because my gut reaction was Gamrot wins, better wrestler. But looking at the data and then looking at Gamrot's record, if I'm looking at Charles's data, the last time he was taken down was Arman Sarukian at UFC 300. He was only taken down twice. Arman Sarukian shot 4 takedowns, 2 of them were defended. Then we have to go back to Islam. Islam took him down fine. He was not taken down by Gaethje, by Dustin, by Chandler, by Tony Ferguson. He was taken down by Kevin Lee, but he ended up winning that fight by finish. And now I'm all the way back in 2020. So it's not as if Charles has these giant wrestling gaps,
Mhm.
which is weird because in my head he does, but the data doesn't really indicate that he does. And then if I look at Gamrot, you mentioned he doesn't really have great wins. He has a lot of wins, but
Mhm.
you're right, they're not exactly spectacular. The Ludovic Klein win, fine. Ludovic's a kickboxer. You took him down 6 freaking times. RDA dropped him. And RDA was an old man at this point in their career. And RDA's, going up in weight essentially, or had to go up in weight after that because it's old and it's harder to cut that weight. Fiziev, that doesn't count because Fiziev broke his leg in that fight. That's not a clean win. Jalen Turner, that was a split decision that everybody was convinced he lost. He did take down Jalen a few times, but they were empty, nothing takedowns where Jalen dropped him and Jalen landed double the strikes. He loses to Padil Dariush because Dariush can out scramble him, which is what he did. He beats Arman Sarukian, very competitive fight. Arman had a knockdown, more overall strikes landed, but he got taken down a few times. He took down Diego Ferreira. Basically, if he can get the takedowns and not get hit, he can sneak out a close one. But Charles in Brazil with the wrestling or the jiu-jitsu acumen, if this was in Las Vegas, see, this is where I don't know what the judges will do. If we were in Las Vegas, judges in Las Vegas do not care about wrestling. It doesn't matter. It doesn't exist. If you get a takedown, I don't give a shit. They care about who's trying to finish this fight and is there damage. So in Las Vegas, if Gamrot got a bunch of takedowns, but every time there was a takedown, Charles is slapping on some random submission, that might actually go to Charles for trying to finish. In Rio, it's a weird dynamic because you'd think they'd be leaning towards the Brazilian, but at the same time, they might be using the old school scoring criteria where takedowns matter more than they actually do. And they might just score for Gamrot because he had 4 takedowns in a 5-round fight.
They're going for the Brazilian.
I assume so, but
What are we talking about?
we've seen people get screwed by their local Canadian judges hate Canadians.
Probably because they fight for. Anyways, I don't want to get into that. I think this is. I don't think the judge is going to really come into play. I think that it's going to be very dominant by one side or the other. That's what I look at it. Maybe there might be one round that kind of you could say is controversial, or hey, it could have went this way or that way. But I think the rest of the fight's gonna be pretty dominant. I think Charles is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I mean,
Outside of getting clipped, and I don't think anyone can really hold him down for 5 rounds. That's what really concerns me. You've got to wrestle. You got to grind on him, hold him down, avoid his submissions, all of those things for 5 rounds. I don't think he can do it. Not on short notice either.
Yeah, I mean, in the Arman Sarukian fight, he gave up 8 minutes and 41 seconds of control, but he had that triangle locked in. He had 3 minutes of his own control time. There was a reversal there, and I think Arman is objectively a better wrestler and grappler than Gamrot is.
Yeah, he is. But I also look at too is that he also got out scrambled when he fought Beneil Dariush. Gamrot did. That's what lost in the fight. He couldn't hold Dariush down. Dariush kept rolling through. And I look at Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira is an extremely good grappler. He doesn't scramble like Dariush, but the threats of submission are a lot more likely in those type of scrambles. If you leave your head in the wrong position and your neck in the wrong side, he's taking it. And he's looking for something. He's looking for something. And, and then if he can't get it, he'll come underneath and try to X-guard you on your way up, or he'll try to come out the back door, whatever it is. He is extremely talented. He's getting a little bit older, so it is a little bit harder to hit those techniques as if you were like 27. He's not, he's what, 36, something like that. So he still has a lot left in the tank. This is a really tough fight for him, but I'm leaning towards Charles Oliveira to win either by knockout or to win by submission. A finish.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be rooting for Charles for sure. My gut is telling me Gamrot is just going to out wrestle him, but Gamrot's the one stepping up on somewhat short notice here, a couple of weeks, so not crazy, but also not a full fight camp. Gamrot, I think, lives and trains in America. He certainly trains in America. I don't know if he lives in America full time or if he just comes here for fight camps, but it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for Gamrot because even if he does win a decision here, he's going to be fighting for his life, at least early on the ground.
Yeah, I think he is here pretty much full-time training out of American Top Team. He's got guys like Dustin Poirier. I believe Dustin's still training, still doing his thing. He's not probably sparring as much, but he's still in the gym. You've got other guys that are in there as well. I see Masvidal's in there all the time as well. You've got Johnny Eblin. You've got other guys that are in there. Some good fighters. He's got that whole iron sharpens iron out of that gym. So all of them can do what Charles Oliveira can do. Just maybe not one can do all of what Charles Oliveira can do. They've got different fighters that can all kind of fit one need, maybe even 2 or 3, but they can't do everything that Charles can do. It's going to be a good fight. It's going to be, I'm actually happy with the replacement, but to answer your original question, for the fans, I think it's a more boring type fight because if Gamrot's able to hold him down or Charles probably able to finish him with either a knockout or a submission. For Charles Oliveira, I think it's an easier fight.
All right. Well, it's going to be an interesting matchup here. Let us know if you guys like Gamrot as a replacement and who you think wins this fight. My name is Angelo. This is Josh Thompson, and that was another Bad Takes.